So let's talk about the Philippines. Right now, the country is in the middle of this absolutely massive digital revolution. But it's a story with two sides. On one hand, you've got this incredible explosive growth, and on the other, you've got these really deep, persistent challenges. They're happening at the exact same time. Let's dig in and see what that really looks like on the ground.
To really get a sense of the scale here, just look at this number: 2.25 trillion pesos. That's what the Philippines' digital economy is projected to be worth in 2024. I mean, we're talking about a powerhouse that's growing at a truly incredible speed.
Okay, so here's our game plan for this explainer. First, we're going to look at that amazing economic boom. Then we'll flip the coin and explore what's called the Great Digital Divide. After that, we'll see how all these disruptive technologies are actually playing out, before we finally look ahead at how the nation is trying to build its digital future.
All right, let's start with the good news, the boom. The numbers here really tell a powerful story all on their own about just how fast and how big this whole digital journey has become. The impact is, well, it's staggering. Think about it. The digital economy makes up 8.5% of the country's entire GDP. But where it really shines is employment. It provides jobs for over 11 million people. That's nearly a quarter of the entire national workforce. And it grew over 7% in just 1 year. This isn't just another industry. It's become a core engine of the modern Philippine economy.
So, how is it growing so fast? Well, a really key insight is that this growth is grassroots driven. What that means is millions of regular people are getting involved in really simple, accessible ways. And this is where we find a fascinating paradox when we start to compare where the money is actually being made versus where the jobs actually are. Okay, so here's one side of that paradox. When you look at pure economic value, the actual money, a huge 83% of it comes from what's called digital enabling infrastructure. You know, the big telco companies, the tech manufacturing, the bedrock of the whole system. But, and this is a big but, this is not where most people are working. And now here's the other side of the story. When we look at jobs, the numbers just completely flip. E-commerce, which only brings in a fraction of the economic value, provides an overwhelming 78% of the jobs. This is that grassroots engine in action. We're talking millions of online sellers, delivery drivers, and all the support staff that make it run. But you know those incredible growth numbers? They really only tell half the story. For every amazing success, there's a deep and really persistent challenge. So now we have to turn to the other side of the coin, the Great Digital Divide. A huge part of that divide is just basic infrastructure. I mean, while internet speeds are getting better, the Philippines is still lagging behind its neighbors in the region. It's ranked 6th among ASEAN nations for mobile internet speed. And that kind of foundational gap has real, tangible consequences for who can even get in on this digital boom. And this right here, this shows one of the starkest consequences. For the wealthiest 20% of the population, internet access is at 60%. But for the poorest 20%, it's just 5%. Let that sink in for a second. The benefits of this new economy are not being shared equally. In fact, you could argue this gap is getting even wider. You know, this divide isn't just about having a smartphone or a Wi-Fi connection, it's also about ability. And that brings us to this idea of functional literacy. See, it's not just about whether you can read and write, it's about whether you can understand and apply that information in real life. And that skill is absolutely critical for navigating the digital world. And this is where the challenge becomes crystal clear. While the Philippines has a really high basic literacy rate, 90%, the functional literacy rate drops all the way down to just over 70%. That 20-point gap is huge. It means millions of people might technically have internet access, but they could lack the skills to really use it to empower themselves. You know, things like online banking or job training or starting a business. So, we've got this massive boom on one side and this huge divide on the other. What does that actually look like for everyday people? Let's dive into how some of these key technologies like e-commerce and AI are shaping life and work. Let's start with e-commerce. It's absolutely booming, yeah? But it operates in a uniquely Filipino way. A recent survey found that a staggering 85% of online shoppers still prefer cash on delivery. Now, in a digital-first world, why is cash still king? Well, the answer really boils down to just one word: trust. So, to bridge that trust gap, this phenomenon called live selling has just exploded in popularity.
Sellers will hop on platforms like Facebook or TikTok Live and demonstrate their products in real time. Buyers can ask questions, see exactly what they're getting. It's a brilliant, very human solution to those digital anxieties about cybersecurity and, just making sure the product is what it says it is. Now, while e-commerce found a way to work around the trust issue, fintech is actively trying to build it. In a country made up of thousands of islands, where traditional banks just can't reach everyone, mobile wallets like Gcash has become completely essential. With over 81 million users, they've basically leapfrogged over those physical barriers, bringing millions of unbanked Filipinos into the formal financial system for the very first time.
And then there's AI. And this one is a true double-edged sword. In manufacturing, studies are actually showing that automation is creating more jobs than it's destroying. But in the service industry, especially the huge and critical business process outsourcing or BPO sector, automation poses a really significant threat of net job losses. So AI is at the exact same time a force for creation and a force for displacement.
Okay, so you're faced with this incredibly complex picture of both progress and peril. What's the path forward? Let's take a look at the strategic response that's aimed at building a more inclusive digital future for everyone.
The government is definitely making some major moves. The Philippine Development Plan is what sets the long-term vision. There's a massive World Bank project that's funding the rollout of physical internet infrastructure to areas that need it most. And the new Connected on Pinoy Act is designed to break up monopolies and increase competition, which hopefully should bring down internet costs for everybody.
But, at the end of the day, technology by itself isn't the silver bullet. Real success is going to depend on coordinated efforts to bridge the enduring gaps in infrastructure and human capital. So that means it's not just about fixing the physical connections, but also about closing those literacy and skills gaps to make sure this revolution actually benefits everyone. And that leaves us with the central question of this whole transformation. As the Philippines continues this incredible, rapid digital leap, will technology end up being a bridge that connects more people to opportunity? Or will it become a barrier that actually deepens the inequalities that are already there? The final chapter of that story is still being written.